Good evening. Welcome to the November the 22nd, 2022 Bethel Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We have just a few things on the agenda this evening. We're going to go a little out of order as the applicant for the public hearing hasn't arrived yet. He's stuck in traffic. So we're gonna sorry to keep you waiting, but we'll have to work around it. So we're going to move into our work session. We just have a few business items to take care of. If we want to start with, wait, I need to see Linda for Paul and Rob for Bob. So Beth, we want to start with 185.
Start with your minutes.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any invoices from.
Everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes.
Yep.
Do you have a motion to approve?
I'd like to point out that there's a correction to the minutes that it was directed to add that Peter Wilson was made a statement of public comment at the end of the meeting. So that's our correction.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes, of November 8th, 2022.
All in favor?
Aye.
No invoices? All right. 185 Bassett Plain Street.
And Mr. Chairman, you had asked for a resolution of approval. This is for JR Associates. I believe it was approximately a 17,000 square foot addition to the former Burndy building.
Except as modified in this approval, the project and improvements shall be constructed in substantial conformance with plans entitled Proposed Addition 185 Grassy Plain Street, prepared by Artel Engineering, dated 10/5/22, Bethel, Connecticut. Okay, with 1 through 4. Reasons in granting this approval: the Planning and Zoning Commission states the proposed plan is in substantial compliance with the zoning regulations of the town of Bethel, and the project is constructed according to the reference plan, and the stipulation will not exert a detrimental effect on the neighboring properties or the development of the surrounding district.
I didn't hear, I can't hear.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sorry.
is that the motion? That was the motion, yes, okay, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
What happens with the public hearing?
Schedule.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
can we do the calendar for the year 2023?
And we have a motion on the table to approve the calendar for next year, 2023, for our series of meetings from January through December. You have a second?
Second.
So all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
So we can start with the application, I believe, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, but can you speak up? I can't hear.
I believe you can start with the application process, and we can take my report first.
So you want me to open the hearing or not? Wait till.
Yes, open the hearing.
So before we open the hearing, I'd like to take just a moment and have the commissioners each introduce themselves. I'm Ken Stevens, I'm the chair.
Kitty Grant, Vice Chair.
Robert Wallace, alternate seated tonight.
Penny Kessler,
Linda Curtis. Kenny Person.
And staff.
Beth Cavagna, Director of Planning.
Thanks, Lovell, the recording secretary.
And Dave McCollum, Land Use Coordinator.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing for CAK Properties LLC, map amendment industrial to TOD overlay zone 9 and 11 Diamond Avenue. I'd just like to remind everyone that tonight's public hearing is to review the applicant's request for a zoning change. The request is to change from the current industrial zoning to mixed residential retail under TOD. To begin with, I'm going to ask Beth Cavagna to provide the staff report, and then the applicant will give their presentation on the proposed zoning change. When the applicant is finished, the public is invited to come forward to the microphone with any questions or comments that you may have. When you wish to speak, please speak clearly into the microphone, state your name and your address, and then your comments. With time permitting, the commission and the applicant will attempt to answer all your questions after they've all been asked. I'd just like to remind everyone, please be considerate of each other and the commission. Be respectful of each other's time and the fact that people are taking the time to stand and share their comments with the commission and the town. And we'd be asking that there are no clapping, cheering, or booing during the session. It's distracting to the audience, it's distracting to the commission. So we would appreciate you keeping those actions to yourself for this meeting. With that, I'll ask if you can keep the record.
To appear in the News Times, November 11th and November 18th, 2022, legal notice. The Bethel Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on November 22nd, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the general purpose room, Bethel Municipal Center, 1 School Street, Bethel, Connecticut, to consider a map amendment to the official zoning map. Proposed property is located at 9 and 11 Diamond Avenue, located in the assessor's office as map 14, block 16, and lot 55 and 56, and owned by CAT Properties LLC. Proposed change will be from the industrial zone I to the transit-oriented development zone TOD. A copy of the proposed map amendment is available at the land use office and the town clerk's office. The public may send comments via mail and email to landuse@bethel-ct.gov. Ken Stevens, Chairman.
Thank you. This time I'd like to ask Beth Cavagna to read her staff report for us.
Before I begin with the staff report, Mr. Chairman, I just want to note for the record correspondence that we've received in relation to the application. If some of you are here in attendance this evening and I don't read your name and address in regards to this, I can almost guarantee that the hearing will be continued to the next meeting. We will ensure that the commission members receive it. And please note that the commission members have received the correspondence and have had time to review it. The following names I have here, and excuse me for pronunciation. Paul Hacko, 17 Farnham Hill, William Cooney, 14 Diamond Avenue, Ronald and Julia Sorchek, 18 Beach Street, Cynthia McCorkindale, 19 Elgin Avenue, Rosemary Palagiero, 88 Kingswood Drive, Kevin Gutzman, Maureen Mashwinsky, Nancy Sudik, 2 Ridgedale Road, Barbara and Alfredo Sarabia, 13 Farnham Hill, Jesse Johnson, 67 Juniper Road, Dana McInerney, 20 Wolfbitz Road, Janice Moy, 10 Diamond Avenue, Allison St. Germain, 14 Elgin Avenue, Leaford Dufay, 24 High Street, and this includes separate letters from children, Lynette and Curtis, Brian Walters Jr., and Charles and Marianne Kinya of Winthrop Road. In regards to my report, I felt that it was important to give a little bit of history regarding the creation of TOD, how we got to where we are today. So please bear with me. First item is TOD history. Community outreach began in 2014 with residents convening in group workshops consisting of approximately 90 to 125 participants. As stated in the master plan, quote, "This section describes the public engagement process implemented to create the Bethel Forward Plan. The process included 4 steps: stakeholder interviews, community voices workshop, community choices workshop, and a Bethel Forward charrettes. The steps were designed to ensure that the plan reflected what residents wanted. They provided extensive opportunities for input. They were also designed to ensure that the public's decisions were supported by the facts. To accomplish that, the DPZ team conducted an extensive analysis of economic, demographic, transportation, land use, and environmental conditions, while simultaneously engaging the public. Ultimately, the public outreach process proved invaluable to the consultant team. It tapped residents' knowledge, it engaged stakeholders directly affected by the plan, and it established the transparency of the results, end quote. The input from these various workshops and meetings with local residents contributed to the development of the plan. Direction from the public to guide the downtown community helped to formulate goals to maintain and enhance our economic viability while preserving Bethel's downtown charm. The success of these efforts was realized with the adoption of the master plan in 2016. Regulations associated with the TOD district were adopted January of 2018 and have since been in effect for approximately 3.5 years. Development that has occurred since adoption consists of the following, and this is in the TOD overlay district. In regards to residential units, a total of 54 residential units have been built. These are located in the Grand 220 Greenwood Avenue, 253 Greenwood Avenue, 155 Greenwood Avenue, and 100 Worcester Street. In the TOD zone, only 1 and 2 bedroom units are allowed, and please also remember that there is a 20% requirement for affordable. Am I speaking too loud? It's very difficult. I'm not used to a microphone. I'm used to yelling. Thank you. In regards to infrastructure, as for infrastructure, the commission has received public comments expressing concerns that public improvements and other means of pedestrian connectivity should be completed on this property before any other development takes place. Other comments have suggested that current infrastructure surrounding the subject property is not sufficient to address the public need. The commission should consider the following excerpts from the Bethel Forward Plan in response to these comments and for any presently industrially zoned properties that could also be subject of the TOD regulations. I go in detail with some of the quotes from the plan. The plan vision is to build on these assets to re-energize the village center as a distinctive, healthy, vibrant, dynamic, pedestrian-friendly community, a wonderful place to call home and operate a business and truly enjoy. It's quoted from page 5. For Bethel, the most out of its investment in rail, it must capitalize on building more homes, jobs, and other services adjacent to and within walking distance to its public transit infrastructure. Page 9. A complete community requires a high-quality public realm. This means public investment in infrastructure must be closely coordinated with private development efforts in the implementation of the TOD plan, page 10. During the aforementioned community choices workshops, infrastructure-related goals were least popular choices, page 19. A frontage analysis map on page 42 shows existing properties on the northern side, Diamond Avenue, as having poor street frontages, requiring efforts in public and private investment, page 42. Transit-oriented development permits types of infill development along streets that can provide a more consistent suburban fabric along sidewalks, page 76. Sideway survey map shows the properties is currently being serviced by sidewalks which were assessed to be in good condition, page 43. General design goals include aligned public infrastructure improvements to public developments, page 76. It would be a disservice to the commission to expect a limited variety of existing neighborhood housing stock, single-family and two-family dwelling unit uses for the Diamond Avenue neighborhood to have a well-represented distribution of public and private transit types. Industrial on Diamond Avenue, located on the west side of the railroad tracks, the area is an eyesore from the train platform, not pedestrian friendly, and too close to residential streets, page 170. The location of this property could provide unique opportunity for increased pedestrian connectivity to Bethel train station. Notably, public interest to connect the east and west sides of the tracks at or near the train station with a pedestrian bike crossing, page 187. The distance from Diamond Avenue, Farnham Hill intersection to the Hart bus transit stop at the hub center on Greenwood Avenue is approximately 0.2 miles, 4-minute walk by foot. The quality of existing infrastructure on the subject property does not dismiss opportunities for pedestrians or bicycle improvements to same or their immediate relation to Diamond Avenue and neighboring streets. The commission should seek and encourage opportunities for other forms of transit, pedestrian, bicycle, to transition from car-centric culture. This opportunity can be realized by allowing industrially zoned properties within the TOD zone to adopt the same for such transit types to be located. Public water supplies have recently been supplemented by a completed water storage tank project on Long Meadow Lane, Briarcliff Manor, with an additional groundwater supply project proposed for Plum Trees Road already received land use commission approvals. The result of the review indicate that sanitary sewage within the TOD area can be available up to approximately 200,000 gallons per day of influent to the town sewer system for future development, page 105. This number was established in conjunction with the preparation of the Bethel Forward Master Plan. As of the date of this staff report, the majority of original sewer allocation bank for the Paul Street neighborhood has not been used. 27 gallons per day in use. 171,973 gallons per day remain, per the Public Utilities Director. A complete sanitary sewer analysis can be found on page 113. The applicant still has the burden of proof to show that any proposed development can be supported by transportation and infrastructure capacity analysis, page 146. If you plan towns for cars and traffic, you will get cars and traffic. If you plan for people in places, you get people in places. Fred Kent, Project for Public Spaces, page 132. Additionally, the commission should also know that staff from the Land Use, Economic Development, and Public Works departments have been coordinating a study over these recent months to address traffic and pedestrian safety improvements in the downtown area. These findings of this study will not be finalized in advance of the commission's rendering of a decision for this application, but they do consider the site's potential for infill development of a mixed-use nature. This report could be instrumental in preparing a public infrastructure improvement plan as recommended in the plan. In regards to the adjacent residential property, the town of Bethel has no intention of condemning or destroying any property along Diamond Avenue. The commission has no intention of supporting taking away any of the Diamond Avenue homes away from their residents. The confusion may be the result of reviewing the master TOD plan, which shows the capacity and building mix, which is on page 86. As stated in the plan, it is not the intention of this plan to designate specific locations for certain building types, as that should be left to market demand, zoning demographic changes, and developer preferences. The new zoning regulations will provide property owners with the needed flexibility of type. It is the intent of this portion of the plan to give property owners the opportunity to understand the positive possibilities of their investment. As was previously mentioned, TOD regulations have been in effect for less than 4 years. As with any new regulations, the commission may determine that amendments to the same are appropriate to reflect the needs and growth within the town. The regulations are not set in stone. It should be noted that the commission is in the review process and will be seeking community input coming of the first of the year. In regards to Diamond Avenue, CAK Properties LLC, 9 and 11 Diamond Avenue, the industrial TOD overlay zone. I want to give you a brief history of the area. Diamond Avenue has historically been a mixed use of industrial and residential uses. A transformation has gradually occurred, beginning with the elimination of the Dolan Oil Company and Supply Yard, which was transformed to the Dolan Plaza Shopping Center. Subsequently, the rear of this property, which had contained 7 or 8 large storage tanks for heating oil, remained vacant for many years, accumulating debris and garbage with little or no maintenance. In 2015, the property owners developed a residential plan, which is presently known as the Grand, fronting on Grand Street, leading into the industrial area. Over the last 20 and 30 years, there have been a variety of industrial uses associated with the properties along Diamond Avenue that are adjacent to the residential zone. Culligan Water Softener, transporting trucking firms, a repo automobile business, illegal car repair facilities, trailers being used as dwellings, and storage of garbage and recycling materials. In 2001, a 2-lot subdivision was approved and is presently owned by CAK. The property is a total of 12.6 or so acres, known as 9 and 11 Diamond Avenue. At the time of lot development of these 2 parcels, strong concern was expressed by the residential neighborhood that the industrial uses would create traffic, noise, and environmental concerns. The business has been in existence for the last 15 plus years with no complaints. Regarding the concerns mentioned above, excuse me, I have to get water. I got it. In regards to the application, the proposal before the commission this evening is a zone change from industrial, section 4.3 of the zoning regulations, to the TOD, section 5.11G of the regulations. The sections list out the allowable uses for each type of zone. The commission requested a concept plan be submitted showing the potential for the development of the combined 12-acre parcel prior to the submission of this application. A concept plan is designed to show the potential for development and includes various potential uses associated with the zone as an aid to the commission and visualization. In the first phase, a collaborative effort to collect input from the commission and for transparency with town residents for the proposed project based on the master plan. This is the first phase. Such concept plan is non-binding and can be subjected to change based on commission input and public comment. The application before the commission is a result of many hours and years spent developing planning tools through the Plan of Conservation and Development and the Master Plan Report for the Transit-Oriented Development Overlay District. It is those tools and the regulations that are used in making a decision for a zone change. These tools are created with the input and recommendations of all citizens within the town, along with expert consultants during the process. The basic principles of these tools have been used by the applicant this evening in developing the proposal before the commission. It is the commission's decision, based on testimony received, to decide if the vision presented meets the goals set forth within their regulation and plans for future growth and development within the town of Bethel. Thank you. just for the record, I just want you all to know that my report will be available for review. On the Google Drive, we'll put it in hopefully before Thanksgiving. If not, it'll be on the Monday.
Thank you, Beth. Mr. Marcus, has your applicant arrived?
Not yet, we'll proceed. He'll be here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Neil Marcus, Conwell, PC, 158 Deer Hill Avenue, on behalf of the applicant. The staff report, which I commend Beth for putting together, because it does put this application in perspective. As she indicated, the history of the TOD zone comes out of a lot of planning. And interestingly enough, there have only been a few applications to date to change the zone to implement the concepts of the transit-oriented district. There are housing that has been developed in existing zoning within the downtown Bethel area that reflects the concepts. But this property is one of the first 3 or 4 that's actually come before the commission seeking a zone change. So as we indicated, we have approximately a 12-acre site, and it's a mixed industrial site at the moment. It consists of a workshop, some storage areas, and some self-storage areas, and it exists compatibly with what I'll call a very mixed neighborhood, a neighborhood of other industrial uses, as Beth has indicated in her report, and of course some housing, mixed housing, single family and some multifamily as well. The proposal before you tonight is for a zone change. The way that the TOD operates, in order to determine if the property qualifies for a zone change, the commission needs to make a determination based upon a concept. So we're going to show you later this evening a concept for this site, which includes a mixed use of basically commercial, some retail stores, small luncheonette type operations, some housing, and potentially some office space mixed in with the retail. So it'll be a mixed use project, which we will show, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on the project, because in reality, the focus this evening is on the zoning. And to that extent, we've got Joe Volskis here from VHB, who will talk a little bit about the traffic implications of changing industrially zoned land to the transit-oriented district for a mixed use, which is not necessarily going to be the historic industrial use. There have been a number of letters that have been read into the record, and eventually during the course of this presentation, but not right now, we will address the comments that the public has made in the letters. But the reason we're not going to do it now, because quite honestly, the presentation itself and plan will address a good number of the concerns that were raised in the correspondence. Whatever is left, we'll try to address more specifically as the process goes on. So at this point, the applicant's not arrived, and he has a PowerPoint presentation on the concept. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order, and I'm going to ask Joe Volskis to comment on what the traffic implications are going to be for the zone change itself. Thank you.
Not a problem.
It's actually PDF.
Yes.
This is nice, 9/11 done that.
This is the same, yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me? Everyone can hear me? Okay, so talking to microphone. Yes,
Microphone because it's being recorded.
yeah, I was gonna say that a little bit. All right, I guess I'll talk with the microphone. All right, so, Joe Balskis, VHB, I'm Director of Transportation Services at VHB, I'm a licensed professional engineer. I don't live in Bethel, but I know Bethel. I've been involved with Bethel projects, probably the last 20 years. And one including the TOD we just talked about. I was here in this very auditorium for the workshops that we did, the charrettes we did, 2014, 15, I think in 16 was finalized. So I was part of that TOD final report. And the transportation infrastructure section that was written on that. I also was involved with the grant departments. I was also involved with Caroluzzi's. I go on and on. I feel like I live here because I've done so much work here in Bethel. I love Bethel. I really do like Bethel as a community. I love coming here. I have friends here. I live here as well. So it feels kind of like a second home to me because I've been so involved with so many projects here and working with the town. For the town as well as for developers on projects in Bethel. So I prepared a traffic assessment. We're not at the stage yet. We're doing a traffic impact study. And we normally do a project like this. So we do a traffic impact study. We do detailed traffic counts. We do field investigations and all that crash records, all that stuff. That comes later. That comes part of the site plan application. What we've done with this so far is we've done like a traffic assessment, looking at what does this project entail as compared to the TOD plan. So I prepared a memo for the commission that we're submitting tonight. And I just want to walk you through a couple things on it. So it's kind of hard to see with the resolution here, but obviously the site, this is Diamond Avenue right here. This is downtown Bethel. Carlos is here. Train station is right here. Where is it? Here.
That's it.
Right there. Thank you, David. And that's Agreement Avenue, Grassy Plain Street, all that. So this is just a kind of picture showing you the location, and the site is up here. I don't have the exact limits on it. Adrian will get here. He'll show you. He's 5 minutes away. But this is obviously the roadway network. Agreement Avenue, Route 53 through here, through the hub shopping center over here on the Grassy Plain Street, the diner here as well, been there and all that. So in terms of the TOD study that I was involved with 6 years ago now, we looked at all these intersections. We looked at the overall TOD project. So next slide, here's the next page. Oh, this is good. So this is a map. This is a DOT map. Okay. So as part of the assessment, we look at what's up today in terms of traffic volume. And this map, it's hard to see, but it shows Greenwood Avenue. It's because of the resolution of the projector, but it shows the ADT, the average daily traffic, what you may see on Greenwood Avenue and other streets on a daily basis. Not the weekends, but during the week. And DOT is counted here. I've done counts here as well over the years for the Grand, Caroluzzi's over the years. But the most recent data we have in DOT is 2020. Joe, it's a pandemic. You're absolutely right. That's the latest count of DOT we have available. It's during a pandemic. But we also have 2007, 2013, and 2020. So we can go back in time and look and see historically how the volumes are and along Greenwood Avenue. And what we're finding is that they peaked 2007 and they've been kind of coming down very slightly since 2007. And if you remember 2007, 2008 was the Great Recession that we had. I remember that. And I know from a traffic engineer, the volumes dropped and they started to come back again. But for the most part, in some communities in Connecticut, they didn't come all the way back. So in Bethel, they've come back, but not to 2007, 2008 levels. So the volumes have become trending downward. So my point here is that, yes, 2020 is not indicative of today. Okay, today's 2022. So as part of the site plan, we are going to do traffic counts. The town's doing traffic counts as well as part of the town center study as well. So we will do those traffic counts as part of that traffic study for the site plan. Next slide, please. Yeah, there are. I'm sorry. I can. So 10,000 here, 10,000 up here, 12,000 here, 9,000 up here in the center. Those are the basic rough numbers. You've got I'm zooming in. There you go, David. There you go. Thank you. So in the Danbury, 10,000, 14,000 here at the intersection of Grassy Plain makes sense. Grassy Plains from up here. 9,500. Again, this is 2020. So these are a little low. Okay, if we do consider today, they're a little higher. What we've seen with the traffic trends, that the volumes drop with the pandemic. They've come back, but they've changed because work from home. We know that Mondays and Fridays, traffic volumes are lower. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they're getting close to where they were before the pandemic, but volumes have changed. So I'm not saying these are accurate in terms of they're exact today. We know that they're probably different, but we also know the trends have changed. Okay. Next, David. So this is a copy, the cover page of the TOD report. Obviously, I was part of the team that developed that over the town. Like I said before, stood here, did analysis as well in 2016 and 6 years ago. Mixed uses, TOD is critical to be near a train station, as we've all heard, you've seen. So that was part of the project. The key part here is that what we looked at in terms of the TOD development, when the architects and planners laid out the dream of what could go in the TOD area. They asked me, Joe, what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of traffic generation? So what I came up with was, at the time, using the data we had at the time, 6 years ago, about 8,500 cars a day. Okay, so you look at what's out on Greenwood Avenue, 10,000, 12,000 cars a day. We are projecting about 8,500. But again, this is in total. This isn't just all in one point in Green Avenue. It's various spots in Green Avenue, depending on where your development is. But my point here, the order of magnitude we're talking about is about 8,500 cars a day that we were expecting to be generated by the Bethel Forward TOD plan. Okay. Excuse me, sir. I'll take your questions after I'm done. Thank you. All right. This is what was projected if the Bethel Forward master plan was developed. This is what was projected would be added to the roadways. Okay. And again, not all on point, different spots of where it is. That's what was projected. Okay. Thanks, David. So, as part of the assessment for this, having the plans that we saw that developed the site plan layout, the residential, there's some retail, industrial. We looked at that and said, what does that mean? Well, how does that compare to the TOD itself? What part, in terms of area wise, in terms of traffic wise? So we looked at it in terms of new trends possibly happening, as I mentioned before, work from home. But what we're seeing here is that this project, we think, is about 2,500 cars a day. Okay, but this is fully developed for the plan. You're looking at about a 25 to 30% proportion of the overall TOD traffic projection. So that's what we're kind of thinking right now, based on what you'll see when you get here, in terms of the projection, specific projections we used for TOD plan in 2016, we use for here. So it's a portion, the whole point is a portion of that. So we're not talking about all 8,000 as being projected. We're saying something less than that, a fraction of that. Still a lot of traffic. Okay. However, what this does not include is what could go here today. Okay. What could go on this site today? It's 12 acres. It's industrial zone. So what I'm showing you, that is what could be generated by this development plan. I'm not subtracting anything out. Which you can look at for a zone change. What's there today? What can that site be? What can that site generate today if someone else comes in with a warehouse, with industrial manufacturing use, whatever put in that zone, what can we generate today? We can subtract that from that number. Okay, we can. We could say the zone change has ability to develop 400,000 square feet. Amazon warehouse. Maybe it's allowed. We can look at that, or light industrial. So my point here is that I'm saying this plan is about that number. That's before we can subtract out what can be generated by the site today. So the point here is that the zone is industrial. What can it generate? We know it's generating a few cars today. What can it really generate? All 12 acres. That is what can happen regardless. We change the zone to this, and this is what's going to happen. So the impact when we do the traffic impact study, will be that number, will be the difference between what the zone could develop and what is being proposed here. The point I'm making is that in terms of numbers, it's gonna be traffic, it's gonna generate traffic, this project will generate traffic. Can the infrastructure handle, it? Can Diamond Avenue handle, it? Can the hub intersection handle it? Yeah, I think, go to the next page, I got the next page. Is that it? That's it, okay, all right. So we're gonna focus on in the traffic impact study, we're gonna focus on here. Because what we're expecting with this traffic being generated here, most of it's going down Diamond Avenue. And most of it's gonna go down Diamond Avenue and go up Grassy Plain, some go down here, some will go down to the town center. But most of it's gonna go, majority is gonna go towards Danbury. So this intersection is gonna figure prominently in the traffic impact study. In the TOD report, the portion I wrote, we had recommended this become a roundabout. Okay, with the full development. Don't know if that's required here with this development, it's smaller, not as large. But if the full TOD was developed, we did recommend a roundabout, and that was kind of unique 6 years ago. They're more mainstream now, but that was what was required here in order to accommodate traffic from the full TOD development. So we're gonna look at that. We're not saying that now, we're not saying it's required, we're gonna look at that, but just wanted to give you just a summary of the assessment of what we're seeing for this project. It's a sizable portion of TOD. It's a lot of traffic, it is. You know, it's gonna be new traffic, and we're gonna look at that. Does it require major improvements here? Don't think so. But when you add beyond that, there might be something to be done there in terms of maybe I wouldn't say a traffic signal, but some other improvements at the intersection. We know the Gold Star Memorial is there. We know that island, so that can all be considered in any kind of improvement there. But that would be looked at as part of site plan. So the bottom line I want to say is that it's going to generate traffic. It's a portion of what was proposed, what was as part of the plan. We're going to look at what it means to the intersection at these intersections as well, and see what needs to be done to mitigate that. Don't think a lot, but we'll talk about a larger development, then look at maybe doing some improvements on that. So that's the presentation, and who's next, Neil?
Do you have any questions? I can take it. Chairman, did you take questions for the traffic engineer?
I would prefer to wait until all the presentations are over and we do the questions at the end, so that we have time to get all the presentations in.
The next presenter, obviously, again, for the record, Neil Marcus, has not made it, and I was going to ask, can we take about a 5-minute recess and I'll figure out exactly.
Perhaps we could do the traffic questions now.
That's all I wanted to do.
Point of order, public hearings, last time you took the questions afterwards, they're here for public hearing. There.
No.
Hold up, you're on time. Everyone's sort of on side, you're on.
Excuse me.
New York.
It's out of
Traffic
our
is not-
control. Excuse me. It's out of our control whether he's here or not. He is stuck in traffic. I don't have a problem taking a 5-minute recess, Marcus. Do I have a motion? Second. All in favor? So moved. We're gonna take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you. And again, I appreciate your consideration. Our video is now set up. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Adriana Chavarria to present to you the project. It's the concept for the TOD zone. So I'll give it to him right here.
Good evening, everyone. Apologies of late, and my voice as well. I'm losing it here a bit. But thanks for making time coming out this evening. Let's start with what we're talking about tonight, presentation overview. There's a number of things that I think are very meaningful. Before we even get started, I want to acknowledge and really recognize all the opinions that we've come to understand about what's happening and what could happen within the neighborhood. I think probably many times people come up here, developers, sponsor, and talk about the changes or proposals that sometimes don't necessarily connect back to what the benefits are for people that directly live in the neighborhood. The purpose of tonight's presentation is very much about what those benefits are, it's very much acknowledging and recognizing the concerns, the, certainly the views and the perspective of the neighborhood. I think that's really important. But certainly I hope that we can build a bridge into understanding what those benefits are and knowing what the master plan has outlined for the growth of the town. So the first section is, the presentation is talking about the character of Bethel. To understand how we've gone about designing a project that I think is very unique, not only to the town, but within the state of Connecticut. We've taken almost about a year really looking at the master plan, looking at the different opinions, talking to individuals and businesses within the town to understand what is the character of what it was back in the day to where it is now. I will tell you, I'm from this area, born and raised out of Danbury. When we think about Bethel, I think about the greater Danbury area. It's, yes, a town, but we are all interconnected of what happens now and into the future with our future generation. And certainly as it relates to the major pillars of growth that we'll talk about tonight, transportation infrastructure, affordable housing, et cetera. So I really wanted to bring these pictures up to really talk about that change happens everywhere. And certainly I'm not proposing a change that we haven't seen before, but the major difference here, what I'm hoping we can do is to do it as a village. Where I come from and the gratefulness that I have for the people that have helped me, it all happened with a village from this area. How we get to having great connections in the beautiful quaint town that is Bethel in New England is because the growth of it happened as well. And I hope you understand and walk away this evening understanding that nothing that we've done here has been done in a silo. And hopefully as we go forward, we're doing it together, understanding that there is not a money grab here. I'm here, committed, and I'm from this area, and this means more to me than I think, hopefully that I can represent this evening. So,
Excuse me, sir.
yes,
Is Bethel a village, a town, or a city?
I'm sorry,
Bethel a village, a town, or a city?
is it,
Continue your,
We're done with the presentation for questions, please. We'll open the floor to the public.
You can't,
After the end of the presentation, we'll open the floor.
use the proper word.
I'm gonna continue. This next slide is to give an overview of what the site in the neighborhood looked like from an aerial perspective. Certainly, we all know that 911 Diamond Avenue is part of the industrial zone that sits across the street from all of the single-family homes on Diamond Avenue. This is no surprise in terms of what we're looking at here. Certainly, the image to the left is the greater portion of the wetland area, which we're looking to certainly preserve. We have certain benefits aligned with the master plan on what that will look like. And then certainly you have the self-storage units on 9 and the Kellogg Hardware Manufacturing Center on 11. When we look at what this neighborhood is certainly composed of, it's New England. It feels great when you're there. I think, and certainly I'm sure Beth and others have talked about it at length, of would the industrial land use there today, and what is the utility of it, and what you would want it to become. And that's really the conversation I'm looking to have, apart from, looking at the master plan and saying, well, it's being rezoned or potentially being rezoned for something that you weren't a part of. But I think here, when we look at the size and scope of what we're looking to do, you'll see that the majority of this area of the industrial land is being converted to green space, part of the public realm. And as we get to our next slide, I think here, as I'm sure Beth has also talked about this evening, is the components and pillars that make up the master plan. That certainly it has been created by the community, by the people. The first part of it is certainly something that we've spent a tremendous amount of time on, is the master plan really encompasses 5 major areas of economic development, transportation and infrastructure, affordable housing, and really the public health and services. And we'll certainly go through all of those in outline form in the coming slides. And there are very strategic goals that we've made sure that we can align to what the neighborhood was desiring as a voice within the master plan, and certainly what that action plan looks like, as we now look forward to a proposal that makes sense for everyone. This image, which I'm sure many of you have seen, is what the TOD is today. All of the gray space makes up the industrial land. I think it's important to understand that all of that gray space and where we sit within it is not converting any residential or commercial use today. It really has low impact use. So I think, I really want to recognize some of the comments that have come through around what this means for the tax base, what this means in the conversion of this land and its use within the neighborhood that exists today. We're not looking to create, let's say, necessarily a new neighborhood, but create additional benefits across the street versus looking at what it is today. And I just want to point out another thing here. I mean, certainly from a TOD perspective, it lays out perfectly in creating the density and traffic necessary for commuters. The mode of transportation is something that we'll talk about this evening in terms of reducing traffic utilization and, certainly bringing forth a number of benefits for the businesses and institutions that fit around that ring. So we'll open up transportation and infrastructure. One of the modes of transportation are the connectivity between the east and west end of town. How we do that certainly is through a pedestrian bridge. But one of the important things here is that we would be in agreement to donate a portion of 11 Dotton Avenue back to the town in order to the town to own that parcel, that piece of land, to begin and commence the process of, as I understand it, grant writing and owning the property to eventually finance that portion of it that's so key between connecting the east and west end. And certainly, as we plan into the future, creating the density necessary to see ridership come back. I think one of the key elements when we talk about the use of a train and where it could go, and certainly having traffic around it, is the generation that are going to live in these units. Right now, it's, for us, the way we looked at it, it's a diversified lifestyle community. It doesn't mean that it's just for seniors or young people. Their affordability is more than just a specific demographic. And many of the units that I've seen, rents have become extremely expensive. People who are moving from New York here are also getting away from extremely high rents to come to a more affordable rent because of our school systems and because of everything that exists within the quaint town. We don't envision a large population of families here, but again, a very diversified area to keep affordable housing within the area. We'll talk about what that definition means in more of the generic sense of how we sometimes can look at affordable housing. But again, the key component, mode of transportation, is key to reducing traffic utilization and certainly our commitment to the town to giving a portion of that land in order to get that process going. The other benefit when you look at how we've looked at and designed the current site concept, and one of the things that I want to mention here is that this is a site concept. One of the things that we certainly would want and envision is that going forward in the next process in particular, that we're doing this together. The geographical location of these buildings, the necessary use of them when we talk about retail should be a conversation that we're all having. I think too often we see across the country a developer will come in and really propose something where there's not a voice heard. That's not what we're doing here. I very much want this to be a process about, hey, here's what we've laid out. Does this make sense for us as a community today and what Bethel's going to look like down the road? One of the comments that I've said oftentimes is that a building that looks beautiful today should stand in its beauty 20, 30 years from now. The aesthetic nature of each of these buildings, as we'll see in the coming slides, is really important. How it looks, how it feels, the relationship between buildings, how we use these spaces are really important. So again, transportation infrastructure here, and what we're highlighting is bringing in those additional modes of transportation that are really key, which is walking paths, bike paths. Certainly, I think we've seen over the years the amount of walkers and bikers in town, and it's wonderful. Connecting the east and west end is just the beginning. Creating this other mode of transportation within Diamond Avenue is really, really critical as hopefully the neighborhood continues to grow within the expansion of the industrial land. Um, The next thing that we'll talk about is the green space in the public realm. This is one of probably my most excited areas about the project. I think there's a number of concerns about what we're doing with the wetland. I think Beth probably spoke and highlighted the fact that the wetland area is about preservation. We're not building on it. We're certainly going to abide by what the setbacks are, but certainly what we've seen across New England in particular is the use, bringing utility into that green space. So here, what we're proposing, which I think is about 3.5, 4 acres within our wetland space, is the use of a public pedestrian walkway park, where you can take a walk, bring your dog, have a quiet recreational area, as you'll see in the next slide. But it's also about certainly thinking about the ecosystem that exists there today. This is another benefit, another commitment that we will be making, is best preserving this area in a very, very important way. We can certainly talk about at length about what the objectives are, but this is an exciting thing that certainly I think we can talk about. Right now, when we look at the neighborhood, it does not have this. So I think when we talk about the existing children and the community that concerns, this is it. This is a key piece of it. And into the future, as you see within the master plan, this park only grows. And our commitment to give this land back to the town at some future date. So again, a major benefit, and this is only one of 3 parks of which we're creating within 911 Diamond Avenue. As we get to still staying on the Nature Walk Reserve within the wetland area, you can see how we envision the components within it, not only a permeable walkway in keeping within preservation, but giving the town and the neighborhood, the community, an area where they can sit and enjoy the space that is very beautiful. When you look below and you look at the elevation of where we are, at the highest point of Farnham Road, you clear the buildings. I think this is going to be a conversation that hopefully we all have in the next phase. We certainly do not want to be looking at and taking away from the feel of what it is to be New England, the feel of a classic colonial building. That's something we can do together. Again, this image is a site concept trying to certainly find an illustration that shows high-grade material commitment for efficiency and placement. We spent a lot of time ensuring that both in the construction end and at the end of stability, when it's all rented, that the neighborhood doesn't look at something that's large and scaled, such as the Emory Hospital from afar. Here, you would not clear that site. And again, certainly the uses within the public realm. Another image here that highlights the preservation. These are, actual images of what it is in the current wetland area, highlighting the species and the vegetation that currently exists, working around those areas that are important. The second park or green area that's of materiality would sit within the townhome community within the village. Again, the location and the positioning, the sizes of these buildings are, for discussion. But one of the things that I hopefully that you can, certainly care for and appreciate is what they would look like. Many of the images in the top right-hand corner are taken from buildings in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New England, keeping with the field. That's really important. It's also really important that we create permanent ownership within this first development within Diamond Avenue neighborhood, because we can have a conversation about where it is to rent and where it is to own. People want to own here. People also want to rent, depending on where they are from the economic level. So we wanted to create a neighborhood within the Diamond Avenue site that is both keeping with and aligned with our community aesthetics, and also again bringing in a second park that connects our village and into what is the pedestrian bridge. Again, I highlight the lower level where the buildings are in elevation, that anyone on Farnham Road would clear the view of what would be the multifamily units on the back end. As we get to now, the third envisioned green space, and again, public, part of the public realm, is a larger park area that sits within the portion of the multifamily buildings and closer to the wetlands. And programming this in a way that has utility and great use with every part of this community. Whether you're going to lounge on a given Sunday, or play pickleball, or have a movie at night. It's creating that together. These ideas are simply ideas until we obviously work together and understand if this is something that the community needs. As I've come to understand it and had many conversations, not only with people in the neighborhood, but within the overall community, this would be a great use across ages and across whether you have a family or you're single. And I think when we think about a public realm, of course, we've evolved since the master plan has been created. But again, doing it together is really important because either we're bringing in green space or it continues to be an industrial zone. The next major benefit is what it means from an economic development perspective. The village. The bigger picture here to the right certainly, again, is an illustration of what the voices that I've heard would like. I think one of the major concerns is, hey, I don't drive into town anymore because the traffic is so busy. I can understand that. Having the necessity and the key components within the village for young people or older are key. The village store, similar to what you would see in Bridgewater, is what I've heard as a great need for the area. We do not want to cannibalize what's happening on Greenwood Avenue. Certainly, we will be working with the businesses that are there. Certainly, many have reached out in terms of interest within potentially retail space. And of course, bringing in a building size, shape, and design to be determined on our way as a team on what that would look like. But certainly when we think about what it could be to program, your coffee shop, a bistro, a village store, a wellness center. But what we put in there is determined by your voice, not mine. One of the things that you'll see when we talk about affordable housing, it's also affordable retail. And you'll see at the very end of a little bit about how I'm certainly very much attempting to keep retail levels at levels that would be, dramatically low compared to anywhere else, and making sure that we have sustainable retail. So another benefit to our community, now we get to sustainability. This is maybe a dry topic for many, but one that's very exciting, I think, for many with for the future, in the sense that when we look at civil engineering today, when we look at the use of infrastructure, water, sewer, water runoff, one of the key things, and it is expensive, is creating permeable surface benefits across the entire development. One of the key things is when you do it once as a site, you then very much require that with any other development. Doing this in a beautiful, sustainable, teamwork way will require that anyone after me or anyone else after that other person has to abide by these beautiful and very key elements of how we continue to talk about sustainability. So these are just a few items on the board that we're certainly going to implement and we're committed to in how we capture rainwater and again, keeping to very much the green concept that the state of Connecticut certainly has now adhered to. Again, many components around the topic of sustainability. Here we're looking at what we would be doing on rain gardens, a bioretention system all around runoff from rainwater, all topics and projects within the sustainability portion of our development that are completely committed to. And again, this isn't something that we show on the board today and we walk away from tomorrow. We make it a condition, it is a requirement. Not only should it be a requirement, it becomes almost covenant in a way where, again, it's important that what we do today is also the threshold and the level that we would like for anyone to come after us. The additional benefit here that we've outlined is social impact. I think when I think about Bethel, it's about music, it's about art, certainly about food, good pizza. We want to create an area throughout the development where artists have a voice, have a form of expression. No rent money required. Again, what we're trying to do is to do this as a team, as a village. And that's how I look at the definition of community, not being defined as a town or a city or a village. It's a team. And the voices that I've had conversations with is very much about bringing this further into light within the TOD. I've left this one affordable housing blank, you know, and I didn't want to put a slide to it because I think it's important about who's actually here. I grew up in the affordable housing system, single mother, very difficult, very humble beginnings. The only way I've made it to where I am in life is because of the village. I've dedicated from when I was 19 years old, helping single mothers in multiple capacities, whether it's giving contributions to the children and their education and affordable housing. This means a lot, and the definition of it is very wide. And when I look at affordable housing, you could be someone who earns, as a single mother, $125,000 a year, you have 3 children. You're out of any rubric around assistance. But in actuality, you are an affordable tenant. We have to look at this in a different way, and we have to make it sustainable. When I think about affordable housing within this development, it's about keeping retail rents extremely low to make it sustainable, but also having having the retail be directly correlated to who lives in the multifamilies and making it much more of a sustainable village. It's a topic that would take a little bit of time, but I certainly want to have that conversation because I think many of the letters and many of the conversations that I've had are concerns about what happens to my cost of living, what happens to the tax base. Certainly, I stand here telling you that I don't want to take your home at all. I want to present something that hopefully we can have this conversation about wherever you stand in life. We want to build a community, whether your sensitivity is affordable housing or social impact. Let's do that together. So I apologize again for my voice. I try to make it a bit shorter in nature, but thank you for your time as well.
Good. Dale Marcus, here for the record. The concept that we presented is a concept which I really can't point to in downtown Bethel today. If you look at the areas around here, years ago, there's an area in Brookfield on Route 7 Federal Road called the Four Corners, which they now call the Town Center District. And the concept in Brookfield many years ago was to develop a downtown. It didn't happen. Brookfield was strung out in urban sprawl, all related to cars. If you go up to what's now the Town Center District, you'll see they've developed housing, they've developed a retail, and they've developed a community, which quite honestly, I was involved in many years. And I didn't believe we could do it. They could do it. And they've done it. And that is a different concept. If anybody looks at what Brookfield was before and after the Town Center District, they would be quite amazed. And then you flip over and look at downtown Richfield. Richfield has always had a very productive and vibrant downtown with stores, restaurants, movie theater, library, all that stuff that's along the main street of Richfield. And they have the large houses at the north end. But what you'll see now in Richfield, they've developed a concept of housing that is oriented more towards pedestrian use, where everybody walks around and you don't have to get in their car. That's a little bit unique because the housing in Richfield in the 1960s, 70s, 80s we're all based on the urban sprawl again in an automobile. So you see areas around here which are examples of what can be done. The transit-oriented district in Bethel, Beth has gone into the history. It is really unique. And as I say, the opportunity for this 12 acres and the fact that you got a 12-acre site that can be developed is a little bit unique as well. In that usually when you get to the downtown, you have an acre or two there, and then you have to knock down a bunch of houses and you get some more area. We don't have to do any of that. As Adriana has said, we don't have to knock down the neighborhood. We don't have to take out the existing housing. What we can do, and what he's hoping to do, is to have a project that is absolutely compatible with what is there today. And then he talks about the benefits. When I first saw the concept, tonight, you've only seen a little bit of it. This is much more developed. When I saw it, I said, that's not really Bethel, that's really Richfield or Lower Fairfield County, because that concept really didn't exist here, but it can. And the proposal this evening is to create the zoning that can allow us to do this concept. But the fact that in this project, you can have a lot of green area within the 12 acres. Within this project, you can have a housing style that's really very New England. If you look at, and the slides are not great up on the big screen, but if you look at some of the townhouses, those townhouses could come from Pine Street in Philadelphia, which is really an old colonial style townhouse. We're not looking that, obviously we're going to have density because you can't build on a site like this without having the core density that you need. But the density here is not in very high-rise buildings. The density here is not spreading out and trying to eat up the wetlands in the green areas. The density here is compacted in the area where you'll have retail on the first floor and maybe 2 floors of residences above it. Again, much like they've done in the downtown of Brookfield, in the town center district. But this concept is to say, unfortunately, comes on the heels of a development in the neighborhood, which is very unfortunate because it was controversial. And I know I was following it not closely at the meetings, but I certainly was reading the press and I was aware of the fact that you have a development which a lot of people who are here tonight probably felt strongly about having a negative impact in the neighborhood. And here we are a month or two later with a concept to take 12 acres of industrial land and convert it to the TOD use. But the concept that we have here is not maximum density. It's not even high density. But what we're talking about is basically doing innovative development with a plan that will be unique. And again, the interesting thing is, if after you listen to what Adriano just presented to you, you go back and reread Beth's staff report. What he has presented to you is exactly what was outlined in the staff report, is the whole reason for creating the transit-oriented district. And to his credit, I know his background and he shared a little bit with you today, but to his credit, before he came to you this evening, we have spent the better part of a year developing a concept that we thought met with what was being planned originally when the TOD zone was first envisioned and created. So that's where we are. So that's our presentation this evening. We will obviously be here to answer any questions, and we look forward to the fact that we'll probably return to answering the commission's questions as well. We're not here to talk about the drainage plan. We're not here to talk about the utility plan. We will be here to do that. But tonight, we're really here to ask for the opportunity to come forward with a development that meets the TOD requirements. So we thank you for your time and patience. And again, I apologize for the slightly disoriented presentation. But as Adriana explained to me, it normally doesn't take 3 hours to get from Manhattan to Bethel, but it did tonight. And quite honestly, Thanksgiving generates a lot of traffic on the roads, and we all were the victim of that slightly. So thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. At this time, we'll open it to the public. Please come to the microphone, state your full name and address, and address your comments to the commission. And then, as time allows, we'll either have the applicant answer those, or we may have to wait until the next meeting to do so. I'd like this gentleman to go first, because I haven't had him up.
My name is David Mullen. 9 Elizabeth Street, Bethel, Connecticut. Your name can hold, do my best to see what I'm going to say. I came here to Bethel in 72. This town had 9,000 people. In 1980, in the 1980s, around 1985, there was a letter in the paper that said Bethel is being taken by housing. There's not much land left to develop. It's becoming overcrowded. This was back in the 80s. Now, tonight, we have people in this town, 20,000 people, okay? And they wanted to stop building back in the 80s. Now we're here, we want to add on it. Bethel does not need more housing. What Bethel needs is, in my mind, that this country is deteriorating. You can't afford a hamburger. You can't afford a steak sandwich. You can't afford a package of hot dogs, eggs, $5, $6. You all know it. You're going downhill. You're going to the store. You get depressed. Imagine trying to raise a family, 3 to 5 people in a condominium. They're not going to be able to do it. Talk about the trains. Look at the train station now. 25, 30 cars down there, maybe. Back in the night, I managed the homeless shelter for 12 years. We took the train. The train was station was packed with cars. Packed. Now you take a ride down there, look at the train station. You're going to have 25 cars. But you're talking about this reality that started back in 2014. Things were good. The country was good. It was wonderful. And something like this nowadays, do we need this? More taxpayer money coming out of the pocket? No. You people do not need this. In my mind, I'm going to be on this earth for a short time. Leave our children something good. Troublemakers, long as they're involved.
Can you state your address? I didn't get.
9 Elizabeth Street.
Thank you.
I'm Allison St. Germain, 14 Elgin Avenue. I respect the proposal and the concept. We definitely know that it is coming on the heels of other proposals, but to consider this one, right? Consider our questions for this. You all have our letters, and I know Beth has given them to the commission, and I'm sure you all have gotten copies of them. I know a lot of our neighbors were prepared to stand here and read them, just in case they didn't make it into the public record. A few things to consider. This is Diamond Ave proposal. This is not downtown Bethel. It is a side street which could connect 2 other streets, but it is not downtown Bethel. If you're thinking of, let me go downtown Bethel, you go down to the library, to Greenwood Ave, up to Carol Lucy's, that whole stretch. Another thing to consider is that the height and the buildings, and completely appreciate if you're at the top of Farnham Hill, you're gonna look right over the top. That's okay. But you come down Bethel's main drag, Greenwood Ave, you don't have 3-story buildings down at that end. You've got Victorian buildings, you've got 1-story, you've got residential. So if our plans and our concepts are focusing around where we can put another downtown area, is that really the right place for that? The other piece about that, a lot of my friends and neighbors have said is that the TOD as it exists right now, how it's written, it's kind of vague, right? It gives a little bit of room there for interpretation. And unfortunately, our Planning and Zoning Commission, you're held by those regulations because if something fits them, you have to approve that. But if there's some gray area there, well then, you know, who knows? Any corporation, any organization that I've known, if you're in have a strategic plan, it's more than 5 or 6 years old, usually gets revisited. So I'm happy to know that that is something that we're going to do. But as far as it relates to this project on Diamond Avenue, a few things are not in place. There is not the infrastructure. There's not the streetscape. There's not the roads. There is nothing there that has changed from 2014 to now to make it different, except there is a nice sidewalk in front of that property because the property owner is wonderful. It is the nicest, neatest property on that street. Developing that is wonderful, but then you have the other sides. This is only a zone amendment for changing this property. So those are all still industrial. So what is that going to be like? So again, you have our letters. We're more than willing to come back more. We have a vast array of opinions on this, but I think most of us agree it is too big, too dense, and this is not the place for another downtown Bethel.
I just wanted Candace and for Julie around so for myself, just to make sure that it's.
All have it.
Okay, thanks. Cynthia McCorkindale, 19 Elgin Avenue. So I want to respect everyone, the developer, the presenters, and it just occurs to me though, there were things said like, I feel like I live in Bethel. Well, you don't live in Bethel. It took 4 hours to come from Manhattan. We don't live in Bethel. I grew up in Brookfield. My mom was a single mom. We had 4 of us. And we didn't have affordable housing back in the 60s. My mother was, pretty canny, and she rented off-season houses in during the school year on the lake and then sent us to summer camp. So she covered all the bases and worked 3 jobs. That said, this particular proposal, and I'm going to focus on the zoning. It's been zoned industrial for many, many years. We do have the Grand, which a lot of people opposed, and I did too, and I opposed the scope of it. But at least the Grand, there's a nod towards Victoriana. They try to make it somewhat Victorian. But right there, that particular development, there's a hairpin turn. If there's 1 car parked there, they put up 1 no parking sign just recently. You can't even get around it, and a bus can't go through there. So, and you mentioned urban sprawl, which I don't even know what that means here, because urban sprawl is more like, I don't know, Fordham or New Rochelle or something. But what I'm trying to say is that the Brookfield and Richfield, they have major roads going through. It's Route 35. Brookfield, when I grew up, it was, it's still Route 7 and Route 25. Here, you don't have that same width and breadth of streets and traffic lights. It's, it's not, we're not gonna be able to put up the traffic lights. But I also have a different vantage point, or maybe a unique one. I'm not sure. I'm the chair of the Board of Finance in Bethel. So I have meetings, which I had yesterday, actually, had a meeting with the superintendent, the first selectman, the co-chair or vice chair of the board of finance, and the two controllers. There was literally like a panic in the superintendent's eyes because they are having an influx of new students. They have 65 new students, most of them are special ed. So, and they're having $4 million worth of HVAC repairs, which would have been 9 million, only we're trying to compromise. What I'm saying to you is this, for all the ideology and the dreams and the concepts, this development would literally be like another mini Bethel. But the infrastructure for the schools isn't there. So I can tell you, as someone who's worked on the budget for 8 years here, our taxes are going to skyrocket unless we take a lot of mitigating action, like we have a tax stability account and, establishing the mill rate and all that. But the schools can't support this if you're talking about families. On Nashville Road Extension, there's a development. They thought it was going to be 55 plus, but it didn't really market that way. So there are a lot of other families that weren't necessarily planned for, which is fine. We have a great school system. What I'm trying to say is I think that this seems to have been developed inside a bubble that's not even reality. And what I got from the meeting yesterday is we're all operating in these little pods, like we have, oh, well, this is the board of selectmen in the board of finance, and then we have planning and zoning. We're not operating as a team, even in our town. So the fact that you want to work as a team, I don't know who you were talking to because we didn't know about the proposal until recently. And we watched the whole thing, the video. So I'm just very, very leery about this. Bethel has one of the highest density rates already in Connecticut. So I'm just gonna leave you with that. The zoning, Alan Kellogg, you couldn't ask for a better steward of the land. It's beautiful what he did there. The other industrial, there's a company who was, sprucing up their building too. So it's not the eyesore that, from that street. And the green space, yeah, that's great. But we're gonna consider donating it. We're gonna consider this. We're gonna work together. Once the zoning changes, all bets are off. So appreciate your statement of good intentions, but the zoning change is gonna be the thing that really sets the trend. So thank you.
Janice Moy, 10 Diamond Ave.
You get closer to the mic.
Okay, Cynthia, you're not Cynthia, right? Dr. Moy and I have lived at 10 Diamond Avenue for 37 and a half years. I'm sorry. Janice Moy, better? 10 Diamond Avenue. Dr. Moy and I have lived at 10 Diamond Avenue for 37 and a half years this coming Friday. This was our house when we moved in. It's the only home we've ever owned, like most of our neighbors. And like several residents of Diamond Avenue, we're only the second owner of this house. It was built in 1957 as a place where Lillian and Ed Thompson retired. Now Lillian was Betty Stryker's mother, and Betty's daughter and granddaughter are here today. Her granddaughter also lives on Diamond Avenue in a different house. When our house was built, there were no buildings on the north side of Diamond Avenue, except for the one at the far end, built in 1924, where Mars Electric is. And much of the land was extremely wet, including 9/11. It was still wet when we moved here in 1985, and it took nearly 20 more years to make that parcel dry enough to sell for development. A parcel we were told would never be developed because it was too wet. In 2004, we needed more space, and we decided to stay in our neighborhood for a lot of different reasons and rebuild our house. And this is our house now. Okay, obviously, we put a lot of time, money into it. And the question facing the board today is whether or not the industrial zone at 911 on the north side of our street should be changed to TOD commercial residential use. You'd think that would be an easy decision. I only took one urban planning course, and that was 50 years ago. But I do know that in a perfect world, putting industrial zones in the middle of town or close to residential neighborhoods isn't at all ideal. But we don't live in a perfect world. And along the way, somebody thought allowing industrial enterprises across from existing single-family homes was fine. In fact, when Mr. Kellogg wanted to develop 9 and 11 Diamond Avenue a relatively few years ago, we protested, mostly because we didn't want to see the habitat and the trees and everything go away. And we were told then that having industrial use there was fine. Those of us who've lived on Diamond Avenue have managed to deal with industrial enterprises for the last 60 years. Some operations have been better than others, and the current ones at 911 Diamond Avenue have turned out far better than we could have imagined. I mean, he really has done a great job and kept it up really nicely. And somebody misspoke when they said there were no complaints about it. There have been, but they've been addressed. One thing that can't be addressed is that the headlights coming out of the self-storage shine right into the first floor bedroom of the house across the street, because that exit does not line up with Farnham Hill. But thankfully, the traffic there is sparse at night. What the development of 911 Diamond Avenue taught us was that industrial doesn't have to be noisy or dangerous or unsightly. 80% of the buildings on that side are single story, and 80% are set back from the road and nicely landscaped in keeping with the neighborhood. For the most part, what's on that side of Diamond Avenue now is very low noise and minimal traffic. But traffic issues we have are coming from the Grand and people cutting through Grand Street and Diamond Avenue to avoid the growing, ever-growing congestion on Greenwood. Changing the zone is not going to relieve us of that traffic problem, and it's only going to increase it. Nor will it fix the unsightly property near the east end. Rezoning the entire north side wouldn't make what is bad there better. And changing 9 and 11 into industrial is not going to impact at all what people at the train station see. What they see is not there, and that's going to stay there. Ultimately, in the very long run, rezoning that entire side could only make the little bit that is bad better at the price of making what is good completely gone. I think before the zones change, the people of Bethel need to understand what's ahead. The end game that starts with this rezoning. I've heard people say, I heard it in the concept presentation in July, heard it again tonight, this is the new Ridgefield. And I was really confused. I'm in Ridgefield 3 times a week. And I can assure you, no one is building anything like what's being proposed across from single family homes. And then I watched the concept presentation and I really read the Bethel Forward Master Plan. I'm one of the few people who's read it from cover to cover. And that's when I understood the full extent of the vision for the revitalization of Diamond Avenue, which I had no idea needed such substantial revitalizing. It seems that the dream, the vision for the new and improved Diamond Avenue is 3 or 4-story buildings quite close to the sidewalk, all the way up and down the road on both sides. There's a really nice rendering in the master plan. It's a beautiful picture, but it doesn't look anything like Bethel, and it doesn't look at all like the place I live. I could spend a long time talking about how inappropriate it would be to construct this project or anything like it across from single-family homes. But the truth is that DPZ knew that, and the applicant and the board already know that. That's why there aren't any single-family homes in this picture. They don't belong in this sort of neighborhood. Now, the inconvenient reality is that there are 13 mostly single-family owner-occupied homes on this street. But by the end of the day, per the plan, my house and the homes of all my neighbors are just gone. Because it seems that that's the vision, that's the plan, that's the new and improved Bethel. I'm going to quote from the July presentation. This is Mr. Echeverry's statement, answering something that Paul Shanley brought up. What you brought up is what was put in the master plan. You can see in this image, and he was pointing to that one, what DPZ was thinking. Knock down every one of those homes and create a townhouse retail location frontage. Now, that's not going to happen tomorrow, but ultimately, it is the evolution of what this will become based on the master plan. My first reaction to the 9/11 project, the concept proposal, when I thought they were talking about the farther east end of Diamond Avenue, was the one that most people have had, including my longtime neighbor who's going to be 100 at Christmas time. Are they crazy? My first reaction to the master plan was over my dead body. As an Armenian who spent her first 21 years living with multiple survivors of the genocide, my next reaction was deeply personal, with echoes of family being driven out of home and country by somebody else's master plan. Now, I wonder if I really want to live in Bethel anymore, because nothing says unwelcome like looking at this pretty watercolor and seeing that we've been disappeared. It appears that in the extent of lengthy planning stages, from what I can gather from reading all of the master plan, a lot of people were interviewed who would be impacted by the master plan. But when it came to us, no one said a word. We were just painted right out of the picture. It hurts to know that the ideal Bethel neighborhood just erases us. And in doing so, erases probably the only Bethel neighborhood where the majority of the owners and residents are minorities. And no other neighborhood, not one single house. There's a lot of stuff that's added and filled in, but there's not one other house in that master plan that is gone except our whole street. I don't think this reflects the values of Bethel as it stands now, but I guess this is the new and improved Bethel forward. Diamond Avenue has 13 homes. More than half are owned by Black, Asian, or Hispanic families. Right now, there are at least 9 immigrants living on our road. 7 are homeowners. The other 2 are our children. I'd like to think that no one sat down and said, we don't want those kind of people here. But that's sort of the point. Plans are made without knowing people, with no regard to who we are or how we got there. What dreams we had when we settled in Bethel on Diamond Avenue, or why we've stayed there all these years. The oldest resident is an 84-year-old Black naval veteran born in Detroit. He and his wife have lived in their home since 1967, 55 years, longer than anyone on the street. When he first heard about the vision for Diamond Avenue, he looked at me with the saddest face, paused, and said, well, I guess they could give us a lot of money, but where would we go? He plans to die in his home. He wasn't counting on vultures circling overhead, waiting to buy up his property to further this plan. Whatever the motivation, the best way to get us on board with any North Side development wasn't to tell us via the master plan that we don't really matter. That it appears that Bethel would prefer to see all of us gone. I think the first thing this board has to do is decide who deserves to live on Diamond Avenue. If we belong in our homes, on our property, on our street. And if we do, then we can discuss what's appropriate for the north side. I've heard, don't be dramatic, the town isn't going to take your house. No one said they are, and they don't have to. We've learned from watching the Grand that there are ways to make you want to leave your home after decades and exit a town that you really loved. Well, it isn't the town, it's the developers. For better or worse, the plan is the town's. And though I've heard the plan is only a concept, folks seem to treat it like scripture, handed down from on high, set in stone, quotable, and unchangeable. I don't know that the board has denied any project that conformed with that plan. I'm tired of hearing, well, no one wants this to happen to you. In 6 months, I'll be 70. If I've learned nothing else, it's this. If you set something in motion, having been warned of the consequences, you're responsible for what happens. If our being gone really is what you want for this neighborhood, be bold enough to say so. If it isn't what you really want, be brave enough to stop that. Because Paul Shanley was right when he said at that July meeting, and Mr. Echeverria answered with that, quoting the master plan. Paul said, you realize you are killing a neighborhood. And Mr. Echeverria said, well, that's what the master plan, it's the way it's going to evolve. It's plain and simple. And it starts with this zone change. When you decide to have serious consequences on people's lives, on my life and that of my family, on Mrs. Ponson's great-granddaughter and the Mills, Mr. Jackson, who taught half of Bethel and his family, the Ramalas family with their 2 little girls, on Bill the cable guy and Tia Dina and Fred the painter, and the Dufay family from Belmont, Mr. and Mrs. Granados from El Salvador, and others. All we're asking is that you see us, and treat us the way you would want to be treated. Do what the master plan failed to do. Recognize that we live there and consider the impact of your decision on us. When we first moved here, my 98-year-old immigrant grandfather found out that we didn't have sidewalks. He said to me, Huckus, what kind of place is this you live? And for 3 months, I've been asking myself that same question. What kind of place is this I live? Have people always been treated this way? And I was just dreaming? Or is it about to take a turn in a very bad direction? And I guess that's my question for you. What kind of place is this? Forget the plans, forget the buildings and regulations. What kind of community do you want Bethel to be going forward? Because this whole thing goes so far beyond just a simple zone change. I don't envy you, but the choice is going to be yours. There are much louder voices from more powerful people trying to make sure the plan succeeds. Maybe you're on board right now for such a time as this. For me, I prefer to take my chances living across from an industrial zone and keeping not the most expensive, but certainly what we've found to be the richest neighborhood in town.
Thank you. My name is John Schmucker, and my wife Annette in the back. I live at 245 Greenwood Avenue in Bethel, Connecticut. And we've lived here probably the last 60 years. We consider ourselves townies in the town. We have a 1760 colonial house. It's on Greenwood Avenue. People drive by it and see it. We get a lot of compliments on the house. I currently serve on the Bethel Library Board of Directors. Love the library. In addition, in the past, as I mentioned to the commission in an earlier meeting, but I also served on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I'd like to thank the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's a thankless job. You're all volunteers. They're long hours and they're very difficult decisions. So I'd like to thank you for all the work you've done on the commission. In 1985, I built the first industrial building, the Francis J. Clark Industrial Park. A lot of you remember when it first came up. It was a great development. This industrial park came about because of all the hard work of the town of Bethel, the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Economic Development Commission, and the state of Connecticut. They worked in conjunction with the state to build a beautiful industrial park. At that point, the point was to create jobs in Bethel, to get taxable property, okay, and also personal property taxes for the building. So it was a great plan. It was fantastic to see it all develop. It's been a great asset, we all believe, for the town of Bethel. The other thing is it doesn't put any burden on the school system at all. You look through it, basically, you have this enormous development, and it doesn't put a burden on the school system, etc. So in fact, I'd like to remind everyone here right now that the Economic Development Commission needs more industrial property in Bethel. In fact, we've just spent $172,000 of taxpayer money in Bethel, combined with $633,000 from the state of Connecticut to create $1.5 million in 4 additional lots in the Clark Industrial Park. I think it's great for the town. Fantastic job. So for those reasons, I would say I'm opposed to any change of 911 Diamond Avenue, of any industrial property to TOD. Reason stated is that it would seem to be in conflict with the town of Bethel's Board of Selectmen, the Economic Development Commission. They need industrial land. It's in super high demand and there's not enough of it. In fact, the industrial zone, I zone alone, not industrial park, is only 2.9% of the town of Bethel. So here we're sitting on top of a situation where you've got an industrial zone in town. It's underutilized. There's development land there. It's an I zone, so the density can be higher based upon your zoning. And it wouldn't bring an additional burden to the town in the sense of like you're generating tax dollars, tax revenue, and jobs, which is what the Board of Selectmen is asking for, and the Economic Development Commission is asking for. If you look at that concept and say, why would we eliminate industrial land when it's in high demand? We really need the land. And so there's plenty of opportunity for the existing owner, assuming he still owns it, Kellogg, to develop the back of it. We need industrial land. That's what we just did. We just spent $1.5 million to create 4 lots for the town of Bethel, which according to the agent selling them, are going to sell out right away and generate additional tax for the town. If you listen to the residents who live on Diamond Avenue, they've all said, we love it. The Kellogg property is beautiful. It looks great. It doesn't generate a lot of traffic, no burden on the school system. So I would say the decision for this commission, if I was sitting on the board, would be, I would deny it. We need the land. They're happy with it. It doesn't create any more problems for the town, traffic, sewers, and so forth. So with that in mind, I would say that I'm opposed to it. Zone change. And I think for the very simple reason I stated, we need industrial land, we need jobs, there's no further burden on the school system. I would also put a note into the file, I'll leave this for the commission. I heard Mr. Marcus talking about 4 corners in Brookfield. It's interesting that the town of Brookfield, Mr. Marcus, article in Danbury News Times says they're overwhelmed because of development with the fire department, safety department. The calls are up 32% this year. They're buying new ambulances. They're buying more infrastructure because of all the development right where you talked to them. So thank you very much for the comment.
Evening, I'm Nancy Sudik and I live at 2 Ridgedale Road. I have some prepared comments and some of it has been addressed. But rather than like crossing out things, I'm just going to read them, okay? Thank you very much. So first, I would like to ask the commission to put a pause on any further changes and variances to the existing TOD, including the proposal that's currently in front of you, the 911 Diamond Avenue. I also asked for a critical review of the current master plan and the TOD regulations, and I do believe that that's going to happen anyway, so thank you. I'd like input also from people who live in this town, and it's easy to say, well, you could have input anytime you want, but that means we have to know about it. And I'm not so sure that the advertising that is done about making up master plans and things like that are terribly well known. I mean, I've lived in town for 50+ years. Maybe I should have known about it, but I didn't. So that's just a comment. Some residents like me were unaware of how approving the TOD might impact our Quaid downtown. And until actually, I'll say it honestly, that behemoth building got put in on School Street across, right directly across the street. That was my wake-up call that things are maybe not in Bethel what I'd like to see them continue to be. It's not the old Bethel. And I know things change, but that was bad. That was bad. I'm also requesting that the commission first and foremost take into consideration, and this is really important, the existing residents and taxpayers in this town. For example, Jan Boyd, who lives on Diamond Avenue. I do believe that their investment in this town and their quality of life should come first. No one can tell me that the residents on Diamond Avenue who live across the street from the proposed development will not be negatively impacted if that development is passed. In my opinion, we owe them the first consideration, not the last consideration. And not just them, but everyone from the beginning of Grant Street, the entire TOD, the entire area. And I live on Ridgedale Road. I'm 5 miles away from here, so it's going to impact me someday, I'm sure. So I can't be complacent and laissez-faire and say, oh, well, it's not my backyard, because eventually it will be. I also suggest that before any new construction, which will attract hundreds or possibly even thousands of new residents, before any new construction is approved, that a formal study of our current infrastructure be undertaken. The study must include the capacities of our schools, our police, fire department, EMS, capacities of our road, capacity of our existing parking lots in this quaint little town, because we are overwhelmed with cars. I mean, we all know it. It's very crowded on the streets. And of course, the schools are crowded, everything's crowded. Also, the often talked about the non-existent bridge. I've never quite understood that, but everything seems predicated on this bridge that's going to take us from the east side to the west side and is going to connect people so that they can walk to the train station. And that brings me to another point, and I'm skipping ahead, but people who live downtown must be very young and have very strong hearts to walk that distance. Plus, they have to live in a different climate zone than I do, because where I live, for 5 miles away, for 5 months of the year, it's too cold, too snowy to walk anywhere, certainly not to the train. So I really wonder if it's what it's cracked up to be. Is everybody really going to be walking to that train station or taking their bicycles? It doesn't seem to me that they will be doing that. And finally, for the last few months, I've been navigating the BethelConnecticut.gov website. Now, I will tell you this, I'm not the savviest computer user in the world, but I'm probably the average computer user. So I would like to suggest that it become more user-friendly, more intuitive to use it. I really have a hard time finding anything. I finally did find the Bethel Forward Master Plan, the TOD plan, and I too read it cover for cover. So there's at least 2 of us, and I'm sure every one of you has read it cover to cover. That's quite a plan. And but finding it, my point was finding it took me a long time. So I think that's about all I really wanted to say. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Brad Colts, 1 Fairchild Drive. So I've got a couple of questions related to some of the presentation materials and some of the other discussion points that have been made. But the first is relative to Beth, to your report. You indicated that the TOD was in effect in December of 2018. According to documents on the town website, it was voted on December 12th of 2017 and went into effect on January 1st of 2018, which would make that in effect 4 years and 11 months, not 4 years. Do I have that wrong, or did you misspeak?
Am I on? Can you hear me?
I can't guess.
Okay. If you look at the TOD regulations themselves, about effective dates.
Yes.
Which is January 1st, 2018.
Okay, because you had said December of 2018.
That's, if I said that, it was a typo, or I said,
Okay, I just want, okay, because I thought maybe I got it.
no, I apologize.
Nope.
It is January 1st, 2018.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, so one of the comments from the traffic presentation was that 2,500 roughly additional vehicles out of the projected 8,500. So if I've got my math right, that's right around 30% of the entire TOD estimate for this one development. Do I have that right?
Excuse me, Brad.
Yes.
I probably talked out of turn to answer that question because it was a simple one.
Okay.
But as a citizen, it's normal during the public hearing, ask your questions. And you know the drill.
Yeah. Okay.
They'll answer at the end.
Yep. Okay.
All right, thank you.
So also related to that, there was a statement made that there was going to be some reduction in traffic relative to switching it from industrial. I'm wondering if there is in fact an estimate that goes along with that, and if that could be shared tonight, just so that we've got an apples to apples comparative. I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Mr. Echobar, is that right? Okay. You had said that this is the first development in the Diamond Avenue neighborhood. Some other folks had also mentioned that relative to the master plan, that there's an expectation that the street is going to look more like the pretty Monet painting that we saw with the buildings all crushed up against the road, rather than continuing to be single-family homes. So I'm wondering if there are in fact other development plans that the board is aware of, and if there are, if you could share those with the public this evening. Because I think that would help inform the public relative to where this proposal fits to all of that. Okay, so, yep, traffic. Oh, one of the other comments that was made during the traffic presentation was the expectation that most of the traffic from this development would be going up to Danbury as opposed to through downtown. As somebody who today spent about 18 minutes trying to go down Greenwood Avenue, I'm just wondering if there's anything that actually supports that, and if that could be shared. That would be very helpful. Apologize, I had- Okay, I did accidentally overhear a conversation behind me, and it appeared that the director report had been shared with the attorney for the applicant prior to the meeting. I'm wondering if that's a normal practice, and if it is, if the commission feels that that should continue to be normal practice. Thank you. I apologize. I overheard some commentary this evening that apparently the planning director's report, which was provided to the commission this evening, had been provided prior to this meeting to the attorney for the applicant. And I'm wondering if that's a normal practice, and if the commission feels that it should be normal practice. Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Hayes, 8A Midway Drive, Bethel, Connecticut, 06801. Full address. To steal a phrase from Gordon Gekko, change, for lack of a better word, is good. And tonight we've heard many Bethel residents say, I've been here since the 50s, I've been here since the 60s. My family has been here since 1970. What does it tell us? that tells us families are going to continue to come into this town. We've heard that the town went from 9,000 residents to 20,000 residents. What does that tell us? That tells us that with time, more and more people are going to come into this town. That also means those that grow up here and stay here would like to be able to afford a place in their home area and community to be able to live and start their foundations. And those that have been here, or those that have already lived a long life, would like to come to a place where they can relax and enjoy their later years of life. That is impossible for the elderly community and the younger community when there is no commitment to affordable housing in this town. I'm not talking about family homes. 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartment styles, condos and townhouses are needed to support a growing elderly and younger community of Bethel residents. Right now, I live at my parents' house. It's not fun. I'm 24 years old. There's many people of the younger generation, either coming out of college like myself, going into college and staying at home, or just graduating high school and trying to figure out their way in the world, but can't really do anything because it is $1,500 plus a month for a place to live, and that is unreasonable. $50 at the grocery store gets you 5 things. And then imagine trying to put utilities and your rent on top of that. If there is going to be a new development in this town, I encourage that it not only meets the TOD requirement for 20%, but if there is such said commitment to single moms, which I am also from a single mother, making 50K a year, not 125, not to compare, just stating. There needs to be a much stronger commitment to affordable housing. And with respect to the elderly populations, when your Social Security income check, like my grandmother's, is barely $2,000 a month, it is going to be very hard to afford life. That means going to the grocery store. That means enjoying time with the friends and family you do have while you have time left. But that is damn near impossible to do if you cannot afford what is essential to human life and development, which is a house, a shelter, a roof above your head. That is why I strongly encourage that if this is going to go forward, which I do support, that there is a much stronger commitment to affordability in housing, especially in this town. Thank you.
Some questions. My name is Allison Ferrier. I'm at 3 Farnham Hill. We've heard Farnham Hill referenced a couple times in terms of height of perhaps some of the buildings and the proposed development and not being higher than Farnham Hill. I just had follow-up questions, mostly regarding the traffic and the projected added traffic. I may have misunderstood. I also, to concur with the other question, was it 2,500 extra cars a day that are projected from this development? That would be my first question, which is roughly a 25 to 30% increase. And it was proposed that this would mostly impact, again, traffic towards 53 and towards Stanbury. But as a Farnham Hill resident, and I'm sure I can't speak for people on High Street or Grand Street, but with, as we know, traffic increasing, it looked like the projected amount from the figures on traffic, and again, I might have it wrong, so I would like this clarified, was from 2007 to 2020, I think was the most recent number, that in the area on Greenwood Avenue between Farnham Hill and Grand Street, it was, I wrote down from the projections in terms of how much current traffic that is, and that was during the pandemic and not past 2020. I wrote down 12,700 cars. So is this going to add then more cars? So my concern would be, as a mother of 3 whose children play on Farnham Hill, that we are going to not only see an increase in traffic on Diamond Avenue. Again, I might have the numbers wrong, so I would like clarification. But we will definitely see people cutting across. My guess would be Farnham Hill, High Street, and any of the other streets, Elgin, anything off of Diamond. So that is a concern as a mom with kids playing on the street. Those were really the main questions I had in terms of just wanting a little follow-up. Hopefully you guys will answer that. Thank you.
Excuse me, Allison, your last name again?
Ferrier, Ferrier.
Any other comments from the public at this time?
I figured that just flew up from West Palm Beach, Florida. My name is Brian Hayes. I currently live in West Palm Beach, Florida. My family is from Danbury. I was a Danbury elementary school teacher, Greenwich, Richfield High School wrestling coach. My father's very involved with Bethel. The family runs deep. My family runs very deep here. Also not Danbury Hospital as well. I don't really know what's going on with numbers, with zoning, with ideas, but I do know people. Now, I'm not a real estate guy, but I do know people. What I hear as I sat and observed, can I take this off? I like to do this.
Just watch the wires.
What I hear is that we have potential, we have opportunity, and that's scary. It's very nervous. It is, because it requires change. The reason I'm getting up here is because I can't speak to all of your concerns, and I'm not saying that you don't have every right to feel the way that you feel. The reason I'm getting up here is because I just want to just get an idea by show of hands. How many of you in here know Adriana? Anyone? You got one? You got two? You got three? What I can tell you about Adriana is that Adriana was a brother of mine. And he and I come from very similar walks of life. It was hard. It's not easy. Somewhere along the way, you may not know that Adriana also went to Canterbury School, which is where he and I met. The school at Canterbury in Milford. I did a postgraduate here. And Adriana came from the tech. I believe there was a period where you were at ACE in Danbury, if I'm not mistaken. If you know about those schools, you know what that means, right? You know the situation. He had been gifted an opportunity. And as long as I've known Adriano as my brother, he has been doing everything in his power to gift opportunity to people. He has a very impressive portfolio. I don't know if you know this, but he also bought one of his residents' car. I don't know if you know this, but during COVID, he didn't charge people, his residents. So while that might not play or mean anything in the arena of details, I think there's something to be said about integrity and where we are in life right now. And if there's ever been a time where change was necessary and help and assistance was necessary, the time is now. That's why I flew up from West Palm Beach, not because of I don't know the concerns that you have, but because I've been with this guy for years, and I sit up with this guy, we talk 2 o'clock in the morning, and I hear all the details about Diamond Avenue. And the truth of the matter is, I have 4 sons. We live in West Palm. They wrestle, they ride BMX. When I hear the vision and I see the potential and I feel it, I would absolutely take my kids here. But it is different. It's different than Bethel. It's not. But the thing is, you're not realizing that Bethel has something really special. There's a reason why people want to come here. I came in, I've got pictures. I'm sitting there taking pictures in front of all the Christmas lights. It's so charming. It's beautiful here. It is. That doesn't mean that change needs to take that away. What I think that means is that it can evolve. There are people out there that do need help, right? Life, living. And I think now there's something to be said about just looking at the vision, looking at the meaning behind all of it. You've got a guy in your corner that wants to help. He lives in New York City. I was sat at his balcony. I could see the Statue of Liberty. The guy drives here every night because he needs to be closer to this project, because it means so much to give something back to the people. And I recognize that I'm sorry, I don't know, like that's what I said, I don't know what's going on. I just came up here because I flew in from Florida. I just wanted to share something with everyone here. I understand that you're nervous and scary, but I just want you to know that you don't have a man here that's trying to do any harm. I promise you that. And that's it. Thank you. Yes.
This is a public hearing. Excuse me, Mr. Trustee. I get all nothing to say to you, but the public. If you have something to say, we want to hear it. So please don't interject. Let the gentleman was making a point, please let him say it. No, we have somebody else trying to speak.
Paul Humgo, 17 Farnham Hill. My wife and I moved here 30 years ago. I grew up in the city of Bridgeport. Starting to feel that Bethel is going to become, instead of the town of Bethel, with all this overdevelopment, besides this don't change, and it's right in my backyard, or right at the bottom of the hill. I don't want to live in the city of Bethel. I want to live in the town of Bethel. This is not a main road, this development proposal. It's a side street. Every downtown area that I've driven, I used to sell paint in the state of Connecticut and Western New York. Every downtown that I've driven through, excuse me, is a main road, usually called Main Street. Well, Diamond Ave doesn't look like a main street to me. It's a nice, quiet, diverse, safe neighborhood. I've lived here for 30 years, and I'm not going to complain about the taxes going up. Everybody's taxes went up everywhere you live. But all I know is that this quiet, diverse neighborhood is going to be killed by this. And this is the start of a cancer to grow into the city of Bethel. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Allison St. Germain, 14 Elgin Ave. My question is, whenever we,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I have a question in regards, has Allison spoken already once? Allison, have you spoken already?
yes, and I have a point of order question for how this is going. May I ask the question?
Ask the question.
So in previous public hearings for other projects, public commentary has had to be directed to the commission for questions on the project. And so I would like to know if, when people are coming up to speak, very much appreciate a lot of the sentiments that are being shared. If the information is not pointed towards this project and this concept proposal, or specifically the zone amendment change, is that going to be allowed in the public hearing? So that's my question to the commission.
The purpose of the public hearing is for people to speak and make comments about the point that's being considered.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the public this time? Mr. Marcus, in the view of the hour, do you want to address any of the comments, or do you want to come back when we continue the hearing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have some traffic comments. Jody, you want to address those tonight? Yeah. You'd like, I think with all due fairness, if people who raise a question, give them answers off the cuff. We appreciate the time to develop the answers properly and to continue the hearing. The only answer I can give off the cuff is the question that was asked about, is it usual for the staff of planning and zoning and land use departments to share staff reports in advance of hearings with me as counsel? And I will tell you, it is unusual if that does not occur. It occurs in Danbury, it occurs in Brookfield, it occurs in New Milford. It is just a common courtesy and it expedites the process. so that when you understand what the staff report is saying, you don't have to repeat it as the applicant. It's usual. So there's nothing that was done here that was below the table or under the table or underhanded. So that's standard procedure. That one I will answer, because it's simple. The rest of the questions, as I say, I think our preference is to return with those answers because they'll be better developed at that point. So I thank by the way, I thank the public for their comments. And I tried to take notes as to what was said, and we'll try to address all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. So at this time, we will continue this hearing for our next meeting, which is, I believe, scheduled for December the 13th, 7 p.m. Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we will see you on the 13th. Motion. So moved.
No, but,
Leaving the term.
oh yeah, I didn't hear the motion.